Happy Monday, February 10th, 2020. You're watching the Daily Mix TV. Hi, my name is Sean Patrick Hillman. So in a first, an international non-English film has won the Oscar for Best Picture at the Academy Awards last night. South Korean director Bong Joon-ho's Parasite took home the top honor, along with the Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best International Film, bringing global recognition to the South Korean film industry. Now, when you look at South Korea, they generated $1.6 billion in box office revenue in 2019. So they are a global player. This is just the first time they've been highlighted in Tinseltown. Now, the Best Actress Award went to Renee Zellweger for Judy, and Joaquin Phoenix was named Best Actor for Joker. Look, I simply refuse to watch award shows anymore because of the political agenda behind them. I would much rather go back to the days when award shows were about, ready for it, entertainment. At the end of the day, box office volume is down. TV ratings are down. Why? People are tired of being told by Hollywood what to think and why about our political system. It's time we get back to brass tacks and just enjoy the show, don't you think? I mean, that's what these people are paid for, entertainment. Now, it does look like I may have given the Academy a little too much credit last week when I talked about how they included Kirk Douglas at the last minute in the in memoriam part of the show. Turns out they didn't include comedic legend Tim Conway or Beverly Hills 90210 heartthrob Luke Perry, who was wildly mourned after his passing and starred in one of the nominees for Best Picture, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Then there was Disney's Cameron Boyce, who was also passed up. Now, I get that every year you can't include everybody, but Luke literally died months ago and was featured in one of the nominees. I mean, that makes no sense to me. Tim Conway was a Hollywood comedic icon, having performed over 5 decades across over 50 films and TV shows. So how do you not include them? That doesn't make any sense to me. You include Kobe Bryant, who was in one film, but you don't include a legend like Conway or someone like Luke Perry, who was actually in a film that was nominated for the night. Tinseltown is a strange place these days. The coronavirus has killed more than 900 people, overtaking the death toll of the 2002-2003 SARS epidemic. Now, that took 774 lives globally. The number of confirmed infections has topped 40,000, according to China's National Health Commission. U.S. health officials reported that the first known death of a U.S. citizen was in Wuhan, China, from the disease. Now, a World Health Organization medical and research team has left for China to help. Why it has taken them so long to mobilize and get into China is beyond me. Now, I have to point out, Taiwanese media are reporting that there are over 90,000 cases and many more deaths than we've been told. I bring this up not to drive fear or to fearmonger, but to make sure you understand the complexity of geopolitics and the role that it's playing in this. Not to mention the fact that the impact this virus can have. It isn't necessarily about the mortality rate. It isn't necessarily about how many people are going to die from it. What it is about is the inherent fear to illness. And at the end of the day, all we've seen is a whole lot of noise about how horrible this virus is and how dangerous it is. Technically, yes, it beat the SARS number, but it's not necessarily killing as many people as, let's say, the flu does annually, or, believe it or not, even the common cold. So coronavirus is very serious, and as I've been saying for the last few weeks, take it very seriously, especially given the complexity of this virus and the fact that it has infected so many people in such a short period of time. That is disconcerting unto itself. But we need to keep our heads on straight. We need to stay strong and vigilant that we are going to resolve this problem. As beer and wine sales decline, alcoholic beverage manufacturers are starting to get a little creative. They're offering hard renditions of typically non-alcoholic drinks. They're also including CBD in various products and formats in order to catch up and get out ahead of the losses that they have experienced. Now, in addition to hard seltzer, and this is where it gets a little interesting, hard seltzer raked in about $500 million in sales in the U.S. last year. That's a 200% jump from 2018. So we can expect to see other offerings from manufacturers like hard coffee, hard kombucha, among other low to no alcohol concoctions. Now, why is all of this happening? What's going on? So the manufacturers are catching on to a lot of the, I guess you could say, the shifting attitudes across generations about alcohol consumption, particularly among millennials. Now, baby boomers, well, let's go back even further. When you look at the greatest generation who experienced prohibition, all right, they may have been very young at the time, but they still remembered it. I mean, I remember having conversations with my grandmother about prohibition, and she died in 1998. So when you think about what each generation went through, baby boomers, as they grew up, the national drinking age was 18. It's now 21. They're talking about increasing that again. So when you look at sort of the attitude about alcohol consumption, also, interestingly enough, you look at the attitude about tobacco. Tobacco's legal age is now 21. It used to be 18. So when you look at sort of these things that people love to enjoy on their own time, and you look at the manufacturers who are going after them, particularly millennials, doesn't make a lot of sense. Why? Because we need to stop chasing this generation which sees fit to disrupt everything, because it doesn't conform to their opinion or their taste. Now, brand and line extensions are one thing to capitalize on a new consumer or a new trend. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But changing formulas lock, stock, and barrel for any demographic is a non-starter. I mean, look at New Coke. Look at the plethora of examples wherein a brand decided to cater to one demographic for expansion, to only lose their core audience because that core loved that piece about the brand that no longer exists. So when you look at these big beverage manufacturers pushing harder on extensions like hard seltzer or coffee or so on, again, as long as that remains an extension and not a focal point, they'll be fine. But I'm telling you right now, the minute that they decide to expand that and focus even more on it, they're going to start losing their core consumer. Oh man, in the 80s we had, in the 80s and early 90s, you had this explosion of these super malls, these mega malls, and even standard malls being built. These days they're ghost towns. So the question becomes, what's going to happen next? What's the next real estate play for retailers? Strip malls. I can't even believe I'm actually saying that, but it's true. Many retailers like Macy's, GNC, and even Sephora, which we talked about last week, have announced they're going to be investing more in strip mall retail locations. It's cheaper real estate, and strip malls are also anchored to some stores that aren't their competitors online. Grocery stores and gyms, that's right. A lot of strip malls, when you go out into middle America, when you go out into suburbia, strip malls, typically they'll have restaurants, independent restaurants. They'll have grocery stores, they'll have gyms, and they don't have a big online presence. So companies like Macy's and GNC and Sephora, they're looking at basically a new frontier in their minds, because there isn't a lot of competition in the strip mall sort of placement where they're going. So watching this is interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with respect to their annual year-over-year sales. So we'll keep an eye on it for you and report back when there's more news. Skechers reported sales of $1.33 billion during its fourth quarter earnings on Friday, and that's up 23.1% year over year. And that didn't all just come from e-commerce, guys. They are a true blue retailer. The sneaker brand reported same-store sales rose almost 10%. That is a huge number. Now, I have worked with this brand before. Bob's for Dogs from Skechers is a line that they sell in pet specialty. They're a sponsor of Adopt-A-Palooza from Rock'em Rawhide, which is New York's original and largest mega pet adoption event. Every May and every September, they're sponsoring this year, which is the 10th anniversary. I got to tell you, I love these guys. I worked with Skechers for the first time last year, although I have worked with Brooke Burke, who was their pitch person for a long time. And, Brooke is an absolute sweetheart. She's so easy to work with, so professional. And I understand why Skechers loves her. When you look at Bob's for Dogs from Skechers, It is a fantastic line that is designed and driven to help the rescue and animal advocacy community. So thank you to Skechers. Congratulations on an incredible performance year over year in fourth quarter. Can't wait to see what happens in the spring. All right, at the top of the show today, we talked about the Oscars. So let's talk about this weekend's box office. Birds of Prey took a major dump at theaters this weekend. The DC film follow-up and spin-off to Suicide Squad bombed in its debut weekend with a $97 million budget, delivering less than $35 million on a projected $50 million opening. DC just can't get it right. Like many brands, they cater to what they think they want rather than what basically made DC brands like Superman, Batman, Justice League, and more so popular to begin with. Now let's think about this. In the 70s through the 90s, DC ruled the roost with Marvel running a very distant second or third. The only play they had was Spider-Man and X-Men, and Spider-Man became more of a Sony property than Marvel during the 90s. So what happened? DC literally, you had cartoons, you had movies, you had comics, you had all of these things that were firing and they were top in their slot. Today, not so much. So what really happened? Marvel focused all of their resources on building a compelling cross-platform story and universe that supported each tentpole. So in other words, the movies supported the TV shows. So you had Avengers came out and they had the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. What happened in the movie played out in the TV show. What happened in the TV show played out in the movie. That supported the comics, and the comics then ultimately supported the movies. So you had this big, giant circle of promotional support across all the tentpoles. Now, sadly, that is something the folks at DC and Warner Brothers Studios have yet to learn. Think about this. When Henry Cavill took the role as Superman, DC and Warner weren't sure what they were going to do at that point. Then you had this obnoxious announcement that Ben Affleck was going to be Batman, and then we were going to have a new Aquaman and a new Wonder Woman. Well, Aquaman and Wonder Woman worked out very well for DC. Superman, not so much. Batman, bomb. It just, when they did Justice League as a movie after they did Batman versus Superman, you clearly saw the challenges that DC was going through versus what's going on over at Marvel and now Disney, since Disney owns Marvel. When you look at the business of entertainment, at the end of the day, the idea is to drive a story, to drive a universe that's going to be able to cross-platform. That has not happened with DC. When you look at the CW, which is basically their TV network, and you look at the Arrowverse, okay? It's a completely separate universe from what's going on in the movies or what's going on in the comic books. That is a disconnect and a missed opportunity for DC. So I really hope that they get back to brass tacks and climb back up on top. You all know how much of a fan of Superman I am. I'm praying that there's a resurgence of Superman and the Justice League the way that it was when I was a kid. All right, folks, I'm out of time. My name is Sean Patrick Hillman. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Daily Mix TV. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, comments, or story ideas, please email thedailymixtv@gmail.com. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.